Hi, my name is Talia. Welcome to Talia Nerds Out. I just wanted to do a really quick video on a couple of the books that I'm reading right now. Or one book that I'm reading right now, one that I just finished. The reason that I wanted to make a quick video about it is these two books covered a similar topic, but in two very different ways, and I just wanted to touch upon that. Now, the first book, and I think I covered it a video or two ago, is How the Irish Saved Civilization. And this is a book that is by Thomas Cahill. The other book is called Bede and the Theory of Everything, and this is by Michelle P. Brown. So the topic to which I'm referring is the issue where the Celtic church and the party coming from Rome were focused on trying to figure out when Easter should be officially. And this was a big deal. There was a meeting for it. I believe it was actually synod. And it just was a big issue. And how the tonsure would be. Now, my issue with how it was handled in Thomas Cahill's book is that, surprisingly, there was very little respect for the concerns of the era. I don't have the book with me now because I read it, or I listened to it as an audiobook through Libby, I believe is what I used. But as I recall, Cahill, when he reached that section in How the Irish Saved Civilization, he sort of dismissed it as being kind of a nothing issue that they were just arguing about, which I found a little surprising because his background, when I looked him up, he actually passed. I'm not sure when he passed, but I think it was fairly recently. But his background is in religious studies, as I recall. And he has quite a few books written on saints and Christianity in general. So this dismissal of what was considered an important concern at that era was a bit surprising to me. Now, when Michelle P. Brown covers it in Bede and the Theory of Everything, she gives the topic a lot more respect. She looks at it from the point of view of the people of the era, and she discusses why this was important to them. Where Thomas Cahill just sort of dismisses it as this silly thing that we wouldn't even consider an issue now. When Michelle Brown talks about it, she mentions why it was important, that it was less about Celtic church versus Roman church and more about we want to be Catholic at that point it would have been a small c. It would have been universal. We want to be united in all the important things. And as Easter was considered, and still is considered in the Catholic Church, and I think most Christian branches, the most important religious feast, it was very important that it be universal across the church, that everyone was celebrating at the same time. And also there were a lot of heresies at the time there were heresies at the time that made them concerned about, okay, if we don't have more developed because there's this church is doing this and that church is doing that. They wanted to have everyone be united in the important things. And that's why they made an effort to have the tonsure the same. That's why they wanted to have Easter at the same era. And actually, at the same time. Actually, there was a quote from, this is, I want to say actually a quote from Bede in particular, but I'm just going to quote this from Michelle Brown's book. King Oswy first made an opening speech in which he said that it behooved those who served one God to observe one rule of life, and as they all expected the same kingdom in heaven, so they ought not to differ in the celebration of the heavenly mysteries, but rather to inquire which was the truer tradition, that it might be followed by all in common. And let's see, I think I have another area highlighted. Okay, it might be earlier on. Let me scroll back. Oh, here we go. The fear of the pattern of heresies and schisms that had been threatening the cohesion of the faith in the East, spreading to the new churches of the West, was a controlling factor. This was not Celt versus Roman Catholic. It was the dignity of the Columban Church versus the unity of the International Orthodoxy, as defined by adherence to the findings of the Council of Chalcedon, as interpreted by the Orthodox Church by the 7th century. That is, Catholic with the small c, even if it did turn out to be a key moment in establishing the primacy of the Apostolic See and inaugurated Catholic with a capital C in Rome. So, translation, this was an issue because they wanted to have more unity and they wanted to determine where the authority was, in this case, in Rome, under the Pope, so that way everyone was on the same page. So I appreciated this from Michelle Brown, that she looked at the source, and was like, why is this important? She put on her, I think it said 7th century. She put on her 7th century hat and was like, let's see this through their eyes. Just because this might seem trivial to some people now, this was not trivial then, and this is why. So I really think that Michelle Brown, in this instance, has actually proven herself to be the better scholar, because she is not pushing judgment upon the people of the era, but rather looking at things, trying to figure out why it was important to them, versus Thomas Cahill, who was kind of like, this is silly. So I'm repeating myself, but when I read this section yesterday, I was really struck by this difference, this stark difference in covering the same topic. And I really appreciate Michelle Brown's coverage of this topic. And I do have more of her books. I have one that she has on scripts. Her speciality is actually, from what I gather from looking over her catalog of books, it tends to be manuscripts. And you can tell while you're reading her book on Bede, it's very strongly focused upon manuscripts, which works because, he was a scribe and historian. So if you have not read Bede and the Theory of Everything, I do recommend it. I am still currently reading it. But yeah, I just wanted to mention that and show who the author is and how they approach a topic can really change one's perception of the era and of the issue. And I really appreciated, like I said, how she covered it, because I actually had not run into an author who had really made clear why this was such an important issue. Because Bede, when I was reading Bede's Ecclesiastical History, and I still haven't finished it, he just assumes, because he is of the era, it's kind of assumed that you know why this was important. And it might just simply be that I didn't absorb completely what he was saying, and I need to reread it. But all previous things that I've read that cover that era just don't really touch on why this is important. So like I said, I appreciate that, and I will likely read more of Michelle Brown's books, and will be unlikely to look at more of Thomas Cahill's books, which is unfortunate because he covers topics that I'm interested in. I just am not terribly impressed by his handling of an issue that he deemed to be a bit unimportant, trivial. So yeah, I'm repeating myself. Just wanted to share that comparison. Have you run into any other periods in history where something is more nuanced when covered by a different author than when covered by most authors or by a different author? If having the right author cover it hits nuance and makes you understand different issues more. Have you run into any other authors with any other parts in history where nuance really helps you understand that time period and that situation better? Not sure if that was a very clear question, but there you go. Hope that you enjoyed my little bit of rambling here. Have a very blessed day, and I will see you next time. God bless. Bye.